Welcome back to Tech Garage, presented by rockauto.com. Now, before the commercial break, we saw compression and how to make those readings. But I want to take it a little further before we get into the cylinder leakage test. You know, if you had low compression, you can run what's called a wet compression test. Take some oil, squirt it into the cylinder, and when you squirt it in the cylinder, rerun the test. If compression comes up, you have bad rings. Why is that? Well, the oil's taking the place of those rings and it's going to raise the compression for a few puffs, and you can isolate if you had bad rings. Now, why do you even want compression? Well, you know, you need to squish that fuel and that air mixture to make a good explosion. So your engine needs about 90 psi compression. If you didn't have that, well, you can shift over to a cylinder leakage test. Now, a cylinder leakage test, I have to actually switch the hose. The hose is a little bit different because we're going to put air into the cylinder and not out like a compression test. So I'm going to put that hose in there, and then what you want to do is you want to put your engine on top dead center compression stroke. Well, how can you do that? You can actually come down to the harmonic balancer. A lot of those marks on there, if you look at a harmonic balancer, you can bring that up right there to the 0. That's usually top dead center. Or you can come over here and you can have it puff and then bring it back a little bit. You can look in with a flashlight, making sure it's coming up to top dead center, because you want both valves closed. You want to be able to put air in the cylinder and it should go nowhere. So here's the deal. I have my cylinder leakage gauge here. I'm just going to hook it up, okay, and then what I would do is I'd take an air source. I got my air source right here, plug it in here, and then what I'll slowly do is I'll slowly start to inject air in the cylinder. Like I said, it really should go nowhere. But if it is coming out, well, you can take a look at this graphic right here. It kind of shows you where it's going. You're going to have about 20% leakage. That's normal because the rings actually have to seat when the engine fires. But if you have more than 20%, you have a problem. So listen out of the actual carburetor or the throttle body. If it's coming out of there, well, you have an intake valve leaking. If it's coming out the exhaust pipe down there all the way in the exhaust, you got an exhaust valve leaking. If you take the dipstick or the oil cap off and it's coming out there, well, that's because the rings are blowing by and the crankcase is filling up with that air. You have bad rings. Now, this is pretty cool. If the adjacent cylinder or you have bubbles in the radiator, that means you have a blown head gasket. Well, now you can check the mechanical integrity of your engine. Let's switch gears a bit. You know, this season, Garage Ed's all about the air conditioning system. And Josh, well, he's getting us rolling.
Yeah, John, we're rolling on with AC this year in Garage Ed. Each segment is going to be dedicated to air conditioning. We're going to teach you how it works, why it works. That way you can know exactly what's going on with your air conditioning. You can diagnose it yourself.
Yeah, and I'm jealous. You look marvelous in your jacket, Josh.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm going to get on mine, so that means it's Garage Ed time. Where do we start? Fundamentals? I see you brought me a nice Coke here.
Yeah, let's start with the fundamentals. I got you a nice cold Coke.
Yeah, it's cold. It's actually cold on my hand?
No, not really. Actually, heat is transferring from your hand to the glass, so it's not really cold.
Ah, so we're starting some principles here. What are the 3 principles of heat transfer?
Well, let's start with the first one. The first one is conduction. So let me grab this wrench right here.
Right.
If you can heat up this wrench, what's going to happen is it's going to conduct down through the wrench into my hand. I should feel it.
Oh, I'm going to enjoy this.
Ooh, it's getting hot. Ooh.
Is it getting hot?
My hand's starting to sweat.
Oh, awesome. Well, that's a good principle on a car because we have to have conduction in order to move the heat out of the car. What's another one?
Another one's convection. So if you fire your torch up again.
Okay.
All right, so it's heating up the air and it's creating an air current. I can feel that heat blowing over to my hand. That's convection.
Now, convection, we have a blower motor in the car picking up the heat, and we have a fan on the outside of the car throwing it to the outside. Right. So that's
using
cool.
Convection.
Yep.
The other one's radiation. So like the sunshine, campfires, that kind of thing, you can feel the heat radiating literally to your hands.
Oh, so like the sun load sensor on the car. So when that radiation's coming down, it can adjust the temperature accordingly.
Absolutely.
That's neat. Well, you got some cool stuff here. It looks like you're going to blind me with science. What's this all about?
Well, what we're doing in the car is heat transfer. We're actually transferring heat inside the car to the outside of the car, from inside to outside.
Okay.
All right, so what we have here is I'm just kind of mimicking refrigerant. We're going to learn about components and that kind of thing, but compressors only deal with gas. So I have to lower the pressure of the refrigerant so I can boil it in the evaporator. So this is that. Check this out.
Whoa, it's boiling, but it's not hot. That's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's actually water boiling at room temperature. That's pretty neat, isn't it?
So that's what's going on. So if you look at this graphic right here, you can actually tell what's going on. You got the evaporator, you got the condenser. The evaporator's inside the car, so that refrigerant's boiling. It's actually grabbing the heat inside the car. It's transferring it with the actual refrigerant to the outside of the car where you have that fan motor speeding up convection and throwing the heat out. So an air conditioning system is nothing more than taking the heat from in the car and throwing it out of the car. That's how it works.
Looks complicated, but it's really simple.
It is really simple, but you know what? We have to go through all the components, and we'll do that on all the garage eds coming up this season. This is a pretty cool basics we set on this, but we need to know more. You know, after this commercial, we have Keep It or Crush It, our new segment, man. This is going to be phenomenal. You don't want to miss it. We'll check in with Dave and Tom at the Rock Auto desk, make sure that they have the parts so we can keep all these cool cars. So we're going to run to commercial, but Josh, I'm going to run home first and tell my mama she was wrong. If I open up the door, I'm not letting the cold out, I'm letting the heat in.
I don't know if I tell her.
I would, and she'll probably smack me. You guys take a short break. We'll be right back with more Tech Garage presented by RockAuto.com.